history here, and we have a mission statement to collect, preserve, and disseminate history, the unique history of Laguna Beach. So this is preserving it through a YouTube video that'll go on our site for eternity for people to research Bill Ogden and his contribution to Laguna, and then dissemination through YouTube also. So one of our other board members in the audience runs our YouTube channel nicely. So we have two wonderful speakers. We're a nonprofit. We're at the little Laguna down the street. We don't have any volunteers, but I'm happy. I hear people saying they knew Bill's early work. There's people from the SADA. So we'll have a question and answer and input at the end. That'll be wonderful, I think, with our group here. Thank you for coming. We have the two speakers that are here. Knew Bill in the later years, but not maybe in 65, but in later years, and really have a passion for his work and him as a person. So we'll hear stories of both and connection to Laguna history. Peter Tyner, Laguna Beach High School art teacher, retired art teacher who taught at Laguna Beach High School and is an alumni of Laguna Beach High School. 66 or no?
I just had my 55th high school reunion, 1968. Oh my God, I never thought I'd get that more.
And Mitch Robinson, who was Peter's student at Laguna Beach High School, who's an artist and who studied Bill, loved his work, and was a friend of Bill's at the later stages of his life. Bill passed away last year, but I remember him from Oak Street Surf Shop, from the festival posters, and that time period when I lived here also. So welcome, Mitch Robinson. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out. My name is Mitch Robinson. I grew up in Laguna Beach. The 90s, I graduated from Laguna Beach High School in 97. And Peter Tyner was my art teacher, and this is really special for me to get up here and talk to you guys, because if you guys came out, then Bill Ogden's artwork touched you, and it touched me, and it touched Bill, Peter. If this thing starts sleeping or something, we'll just wake it up. But yeah, I put together a fun video. I had the pleasure of really connecting with Bill later in life, and I got him on the phone, and he just started rambling these incredible stories, and I was thinking, oh, this would be a perfect podcast, or this would be we gotta record some of these stories about his life, So I was able to get like about 5 hours worth of audio of him talking about his art and telling stories. So that was really special. So this video I made, I took some of his audio and I was able to, edit it with some really fun images. So let's learn a little bit about Bill Ogden. I think he was born in 1945, 46 in Oklahoma. And at that time, it was really hard. Life was hard. I hear the word Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl. That doesn't mean anything to me, but that was really bad for a lot of people over there. And so his family was affected by the Dust Bowl, and he was part of the Ogden clan. And the Ogdens, a lot of them made their way west. So him and his father, his whole family. So they made their way to LA. This is where Bill talks about, growing up in a sharecropper's shack. And that doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't really know what a sharecropper is. I don't know what a shack is, but basically when they moved here to LA, it was dirt floors, dirt driveways, So he grew up in a place called Oakey Flats and Bell Gardens, And his father was an electrician. His father was really smart, and his father, there were a lot of homes opening up, so they were able to buy a home, and then he moved to West Covina area, And then brother got into surfing. He had an older brother. But I talked to Bill. I said, when did you start doing art? Like, when did it happen? He said, and Bill's memory and his attention to detail were incredible. He knew all these details. And he said that he got a hold of some crayons at a young age and really worked it and worked it and worked it. And he said after that point, and he said he was like 3 or 4 years old. He said after that point, he just drew a lot and was able to do different images. And around this time, Mad Magazine had come out. And for a lot of kids and a lot of people that age, Mad Magazine was really influential, especially for boys, and there was all these different comics in there. But that's Bill kind of was like, and he was growing up in the beatnik scene, was kind of, the hippie thing didn't really happen, and that's what's really cool about Bill, because right at the height of his art superpower, some of it, is right when the hippie thing was happening, and he's smack dab in the middle of all that, and it's so pivotal. So, this is, he's growing up in, he's in Orange County somewhere. Yeah, so he makes his way to San Clemente, and he's doing art, and he's not doing black and white drawings anymore. Now he's like doing color, but now he's living by the coast, and he's super influential by the waves and the chicks and the lifestyle, But there's another artist in town, and his name's Rick Griffin. And these two had a little bit of rivalry, and they met up with each other a couple times, and Bill was influenced by Rick, but at this time, LSD was not illegal. This was 68, 69, I think it became illegal in the 1970 maybe. So these surfers were really experimenting with the surf culture, but now LSD had come into the picture. And Laguna Beach was smack dab in the middle of that. And it was documented in the movie and the book, The Brotherhood. And we know that the Brotherhood, rich surfers, they made their way into the canyon. But this was so new to the cops. They didn't know how to adjust to this new, drug that was taking the young people at the time by storm, because they would take the drug and they thought, hey, we can change the world if we just get everyone to take this. And they were serious. So they set up shop here in the canyon. And the cops were always on their tail. And so Laguna Canyon, right there, Canyon Acres, it was known as Dodge City. And Dodge City because they're always dodging the cops, But it was a very rough place. There was a lot of fist fights happening. There was a lot of young underage girls running away and finding themselves in the canyon. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of alcohol. But the people at the nucleus of all that bad, they thought, hey, we could change all that through LSD. And Bill was in the middle of that. And Bill started experimenting with doing art and taking drugs. And it was reflective of the time. People were vibrating and his art was vibrating. And so around 68, around 69 and 70 and 71, that's when Bill he moved from San Clemente to Laguna, and he acted as the Brotherhood's artist, and Bill was, the story of Laguna Beach is a couple different stories, but it's like these vagabonds that come through town and these artists and they're drifters, but they see Laguna Beach in this beautiful way that, the way we once saw when we first, saw it. So Bill, anytime he wanted money or something, he would paint a painting, and people wanted those paintings, and his paintings were in demand. So, Brotherhood's like, come on over, come hang out in the canyon, we'll give you all the drugs you want, we'll, just paint us paintings. And so, you'll hear Bill's voice, he was a test pilot for this stuff. And he was able to, what's fun is, what I wanted to do with Bill when I got together with him was to give context to his artwork. And so with the edit we will show you, it shows some context. He's talking about this time in his life where the drugs made him more creative, and he talks about that. So anyways, Bill, when did you guys first see your Bill Ogden painting? What was it? What did you see? What was it different? Was it vibrating? And it probably was. And Bill's art came into my life with the sound spectrum posters. When I was in high school, everybody had one of those posters. And he was a legend in this town. And I never thought I'd meet him. I never thought I'd see him. And slowly, people would be like, oh, that's Bill Ogden over there. And he'd be, signing something. And he was hustling. He was a hustler, So, if you're an artist or you look up to someone, you think, how can I do that? How do they do it? How can I copy them? And I've copied Bill Ogden's artwork my whole life, the way his hair is. And then who's Bill's inspiration? Alfonso Mucca, we all love the hair and the woman. And the way Bill was able to capture the essence of Laguna, and you see the paintings now and they still capture that essence. And it's because his subjects, he uses nature in such a playful way that it's pleasing to the eye. But he works damn hard on these paintings and the underpaintings in the process. And there's some famous painters out there, but the painter I was interested in was Bill Ogden. And I was interested in his process. And his process was painstaking. He would have sketches and sketches, and then every painting has an underpainting and an underpainting. And that's why it stands the test of the time. That's why it vibrates when you look at it, because his heart and soul is in these paintings, and he pulls out the light, and it's just, he takes his time with that, and it really resonates. So Bill got famous around town with his posters, and the Brotherhood and the Mystic Arts Cafe, and then these hippies have this huge party in the canyon. It's called the Great Christmas Happening. And they made a flyer. And the hippies, they were going to have their own Woodstock here. And I really hope some of you people were there, because I look back on it and it's incredible that it took place. And the whole thing was kind of a lie, kind of this Christmas Day party where all these bands were going to play, but the promise was that Jesus, if everyone took acid, Jesus was going to come down and be with everyone. And so, it was cold out there, it was muggy, it wasn't this paradise, but somehow the Brotherhood was able to fly a Cessna plane over the party and dump out 10,000 hits of Orange Sunshine. So that's never been pulled off before, and that's cool that it happened. I mean, there's so much history in this canyon. It's so cool. And we gotta lean into that history, that's, it's still vibrating, And so after all the hippie stuff, Bill tried to clean up his act a little bit, and then he started doing more surf art, and he got into Surfer magazine. They had the back cover for Jackson swimwear for like 4 or 5 years. And then he kind of disappeared, and he kind of went out to the canyon, and not the canyon, the desert. You know, a lot of the hippies made their way out there because their Idlewild is actually the place. And if you ever go to Idlewild, you'll understand why they stayed there. You hear this like the last gasp of hippiedom, you know, for Christmas happening. That was the final straw for the town. You know, they rounded up all the hippies. Bill Ogden got in trouble because his name was on the flyer, this and that. So everyone went to Idlewild, and Bill started painting landscapes and yucca trees and desert nightscapes, you know, and really, you know, this town, like, Bill was one of the first artists for the Sawdust Festival. And the Sawdust Festival is a rebel festival, which was an answer to the Pageant of the Masters, which at that time weren't showcasing local artists. They were showcasing big names. And the local artists said, damn it, we want our own festival. And the pageant, the Festival of Arts, kind of looked down on them. And you guys know it started right down here in this parking lot, down the way. And so there's another festival that is going to happen. A rebel festival, the same way the Sawdust Festival was the answer to the big names, you know? And we're going to lean into this hippie artwork that still resonates because it's so positive. The mushrooms, the fairies, you know, kids love it. There's a reason for it. It's timeless. And a lot of it, most of it started here. So Bill, later on, you know, I met Bill at an art show, and I got his phone number, and it was incredible. I was like, hey, Bill, you know, I was so nervous. I was like, hey, if you ever need a place to stay that's by the beach, you can. He's like, oh, that sounds pretty good, yeah, you know, and so I got his number. But I was able to talk with Bill, and we got kind of close on the phone because he was like, hey, you're doing real good work. Because I wanted to film his process, like walk people through his painting process. And I started to get there, and that's why I ran into Peter. Bill was working on a painting for Peter. Sadly, it would be the last painting Bill ever did. But I said, you know, me and Bill, we had talked on the phone, and I recorded the conversations with his permission. He's like, you're doing good work, son. And I said, I really want to film you, and you know, because. And he's like, well, I'm coming down to drop this painting off with Peter. We will take pictures, and we took photos, and we recorded, and we talked about Bill's big comeback. Yeah. And unfortunately, it didn't happen, but this is a starting point, you know. I'm super passionate, Peter's passionate, and thanks for coming out. And we got a great slideshow with a ton of this art, so thanks, guys. I'll roll the video now, and then we'll have Pete talk.
LSD, and I was right in the middle of it. what I did was stay in the background. I was just the artist, and I did 4 full-page illustrations. They're in that book. 4 full-page illustrations for taking LSD. I mean, it's never been done, dude. Nobody's ever advertised in a public paper to take LSD. It's the only time I've ever heard of it. All of those illustrations were done in pencil first, and I was on a high dose of LSD. I learned to draw on LSD, and the only way I can explain it, it's hard to talk about because it sounds like magic. It doesn't sound like it could possibly happen the way it happened to me. One night I was out at the Brotherhood's house, and I actually had a room in the basement, which was connected to the garage. This was on a hillside that came up from Laguna Canyon Road. Today you can't see the house because there are all these willows that have grown in the stream that runs through the canyon, and it blocks out the house that sits up on that hill. So anyway, I'm in the lowest level. They had given me some LSD, believe it or not, to test. Take it and see what you think. Okay, all right, yeah, sure. I was kind of a pilot at that time. I had been taking LSD off and on, no big deal. It wasn't like an all-the-time thing. No, it was a special deal when I would do it. Later on in life, when it got into the 70s, I was dosed a couple of times. To get back to drawing on LSD, I took this LSD that they gave me, and I thought, well, I'm going to try a little, just, I would take a whole bunch and see what happened. No, I mean, to take a little bit of time, I'm like a professor of psychedelics. And so I take a small amount, I'm coming on, an hour or two are passing by. I think I might have taken another spot. Because see, what they would give me is a baggie full of powder about an inch deep at the bottom. And just to run your finger and touch that is a major dose. Very little of it goes a long, long way. And I knew this. So, and this was purple. This was the baggie that held probably 5,000 doses of purple barrels, as they were called in those days. So at a certain point, I'm coming down the other side. Everything's cool. The front side of LSD is like being tied to the front of an express train at about 150 miles an hour. It's radical. And then when you reach the peak, as we used to call it, you come down the backside, and that's when all the patterns, all the fairy tale, it's incredible. There's so much going on, and you're walking through it. I remember at one time doing this, and I was breathing in the patterns, and then I would breathe them out. Can you believe that? I got the idea. My drawing board was right around the corner of the wall. That was private, which was cool. So I just walked around the corner and sat down at my drawing board, grabbed a pencil, and the first thing that happened was the pencil melted right through the drawing board. Well, how am I going to draw with this? So I'm trying to figure it out. And I decided I'm going to simply make I was out there too. I mean, everything was transparent, and I was turning into a one-celled animal. The universe. I have the pencil in my hand, the drawing board is in front of me, an empty piece of paper, and I thought to myself, I'm going to draw a simple circle like sun with rays, just lines coming off of it. I'm going to see if I can do it. Dude, I got into drawing something. I followed the pencil. I got more and more into it. It became three-dimensional. Pretty soon, this bizarre creature was on the paper in front of me in 3 dimensions. It was, whoa, man, I gotta tell you. Well, I kept drawing, and I was filling it in more and more, and going over the lines. I got sleepy and tired, and I crashed. The next morning, when I woke up, I was still a little buzzed, not too bad, because I didn't take a very high dose now. So I the corner of the wall to look at my drawing board. And on my drawing board was this drawing. It was drawn on its own. And because I had drawn it that way, it almost started taking me back into being high as I was the night before. It started vibrating and moving, and I'm going, I did this. And I did. I acted like a crazy professor in his laboratory. I did it. After that, and I've seen many movies like that. I've seen a lot of these mad professors, and I started feeling like one because here I am discovering this. Who will believe? You know what I mean? How can I control this? A few days later, I'm tripping out, and I knew some people in town. I'm living out in the canyon. I started doing my work by setting it up before I took the LSD. I would set up the drawing paper with the proportions so that I didn't go psychedelically out of control. So those lines would keep me inside. So when I did a job, like I did for each one of the pieces that were in the free press, I would get the idea in my head, it would appear on the paper, and I would, in a few minutes, it would appear. It was almost like cheating. I couldn't believe it. To me, those years that I was taking LSD and drawing, I look back on it like going through 4 or 5 years of art school, all in that time by just drawing on LSD. I learned to do the figure in such a way. Well, take this. I had this girlfriend, and she was like, she was very intelligent. She was just like a regular chick, and she was very Laguna-ish, and she's fairly well known down there. She's still alive. She's about 3 or 4 years younger than me. And anyway, we were like pals, and we would take LSD together without any of the hang-ups, just like 2 kids adventuring. We would get together. And like I say, she was intelligent, she was no ding-dong, and we became friends with benefits. I ended up having many friends with benefits. We're off and on for, geez, 30 years at least. Anyway, and that's when she was 18 and I was 24. I had just moved to Laguna, and yeah, I can go into that. So we went up to the Ortega Mountains, and we took a walk along the stream. At that time of the year, and back in those days, the water was running very nicely, and the weather was great. And here we are coming on to LSD. I also had a drawing board with me of good size, something like 16 by 20, and my favorite pencils. There we are, hiking along and coming on more and more to LSD. I started drawing. The drawings I did that day, I ended up using in other jobs I did a few years later. For instance, I used one of the drawings in the 70 calendar, the 1970 calendar. Golden metallic lady coming down on the left. That's her, and that's straight from the drawing I did on LSD, walking along the stream. I have the original drawing still, the 1970 calendar. Yeah, and there's that. Sun. Oh, dude, take this. On the night in 1969, when they landed on the moon, I was on LSD, and I drew that sun while I was watching them land, because what I was doing, you see, I had this tool shed in this guy's backyard. It had a cot and a drawing board. Now this tool shed wasn't like any other tool shed. It had wall-to-wall carpeting and windows with curtains in them. So I'm living in this thing, kind of hippie style, and I'm working on the 1970 calendar. I go into the house, and this guy was watching them land on the TV. So here I am, really out there on LSD, and I'm going between the TV when they're landing on the moon and my drawing of the 70 calendar. And in between, this is what was really far out, in between the house Hill, I was out under the stars, blazing on LSD. And I was looking up at the stars, just practically gone, you know what I mean? And then I come back down into what looked like a cartoon house. The tool shed, like I say, was more like a dollhouse. And so I would go inside of it to my drawing board, and there would be this drawing just vibrating all over the room, and then me putting touches on it in between landing on the moon and coming back out to work on this drawing. And I ended up doing the whole drawing in one night on acid, yes. I believe it was orange sunshine. But anyway, as you can see, back in those days, I really experimented with LSD. I need to write this down and get it to the public. A lot of people don't know that any of this happened. I'm not the kind of guy who run around bragging. And besides that, some of the stuff I do is, you just don't go around talking about. I kind of was doing my own thing and creating my own world. About this time, I was coming up with the other icons in my work, moving into the 71 calendar and then into the 72 calendar. I wasn't so much using LSD by 72. I was somewhat not thinking about it. I didn't go there. That's when a few years later, a couple of people thought it would be funny if they dosed me.
That's it.
That's a hard one to follow.
Watch again.
So, hello, everybody. My name is Peter Tyner. I was the art teacher at the high school. I went to Laguna Beach High School as well. I grew up in Laguna Beach. A little before, can you guys hear me all right? Or
Yeah.
do we not need this?
Well, use it for the camera.
Yeah.
Picking you up back there,
So, yeah, I grew up in Laguna. I was younger than all these guys, so I wasn't with the Brotherhood or really in that whole era. I was in high school. I was a younger guy. The thing Mitch didn't quite get to, I mean, the whole reason for the whole hippie movement was we were trying to change the world and make it a better place. Those of us that were born in the 50s, you know, we grew up in this nuclear age of post-World War II. We'd already dropped 2 atomic bombs, and the world was kind of going at this atomic nuclear war game. And if you recall, in the 50s, we would have to go under desks and hide from a disaster. And so by the time it came into the 60s, the young people were tired of this world that we're living in. It just isn't the right way it should be. We need to take care of each other and not destroy the world as it seemed to be going. So, you know, this anti-war movement started here in Laguna Beach. It was really, the hippies were so strong, the anti-war movement was so strong in Laguna Beach, it took over Orange County, it took over, we were known for what we were trying to do as far as making a better world. You know, there's a lot of talk about acid, LSD, all this kind of stuff, but maybe Bill was a little prolific with his use, but you know, compared to what's going on today, the drug use is far more chronic and far more deadly than what we did back then. You know, fact, myself personally, I only tried LSD a couple of times. I couldn't take it. It was over my everything. I just was out of control with it. So I don't want to be a part of that side of this discussion. But Bill's work and what he was as an artist just really impressed me to no end. I mean, I grew up in Laguna. I graduated in 1968, had to go to art school to stay out of the war. So, you know, that's kind of the era of my Laguna Beach. It wasn't like any other time this town ever went through, and frankly, we scared the hell out of everybody. Because it's like, what are you hippies about, you know? We were trying to make a better world, a safer world, one that didn't have war as part of it. You know, Bill didn't do any real anti-war stuff, but he was part of the psychedelic era and did the beautiful paintings and drawings that he did and illustrations. I met Bill at about 1980. I was teaching high school, and he was at the Orange Inn. And Bill was a very eccentric, mysterious man. He didn't really have a lot of friends. He kind of just stuck to himself. He stayed in his own little art world, and it's pretty much where he lived all the time. But one day I was at the Orange Inn, you know where that is, and Bill comes walking in the morning. He puts his portfolio down on the table, opens it up, and just sits in the back. Doesn't say anything to anybody. And people start going, well, what is this? And we started looking at his work and just going, my God, who is this guy? His drawings, Bill's drawings were incredible. I mean, I've been in art my whole life. I've studied it. I've been through art school. I've taught painting, everything. But I never knew anybody that could draw or paint really as good as Bill Ogden. He became my mentor as an artist. I was able to get a painting of his and a couple little wave drawings, and I would keep them close to me just to push me, to inspire me to do better, to finish it a little more thoroughly. And Bill really became my mentor along the way. You know, back in the 60s, before the hippie thing, surfing was huge. 1960, Surfer magazine started. John Severson, he was an art teacher at Laguna Beach High School in the 50s. People didn't really know John at that point, but he started Surfer magazine in 1960, and he left the high school in teaching because of that. A lot of artists started doing paintings for him. The wave paintings that Bill Ogden did were kind of a big part of the style of surf art that was going on in those days. And then from surf art, it went into the psychedelic art of the mid-60s, you know, during the whole anti-war movement. What do I have to say about him? Well, he was just an amazing man in every way. I got to know him, and he became my mentor. And as a teacher at the high school, Laguna Beach, where I grew up, I know how foundational art is in this town, and I wanted to celebrate the artists that came through Laguna. So my last year was 2011. I brought Bill Ogden to the high school to talk to the kids. I said, I'm having Bill Ogden come to speak. They went crazy for it. I said, yeah, go down to the Sound Spectrum, buy some posters, and he'll sign them. So Bill came to school, and the kids loved him. He loved the kids. Bill wanted to be an art teacher, but he never went to art school to do that. He studied paintings and the masters, the Renaissance. He studied the Flemish painters. And what that meant was, it was a two-step process. He painted everything in a sepia tone. So the whole painting was done in these beautiful, warm sepia tones. It's like drawing. That's how we got them. And by the way, Bill never used photographs. He never used an eraser. Everything he did was direct drive, from that pencil to the canvas and then to oil. I never knew anybody that could do that could draw as well as he did. It just was so impressive. So I became close to Bill during those years after 2011. I'd call him up. He had moved to Pinyon Flats out in the desert at that point, right above Coachella Valley. Bill moved in 1990 to Pinyon Flats, and he kind of lived out there. In fact, Mitch had a painting of the house he lived in. It's a very small, 500 square foot painting house in Pinyon Flats. And he lived there, worked there. It was everything for him. So, that's where the world of Bill Ogden came. He ended up, and two, what I want to say is his paintings later in his life, like the last 20 years, Bill's work just kept getting better and better and better. He just grew. So as Laguna artists, you come into this town, you get a style of painting, right? And you end up at the Sawdust or the festival, and that's all you do, the same style of painting, year after year. People know you for your work, they revere your style that you bring to them. Well, Bill could do anything. He could do printmaking on any subject. He could draw and paint. He was never limited to one style. You think of the Sound Spectrum's posters and psychedelic, but Bill went way past that as an artist. He was a thorough artist at every point, and that's why I wanted to know him personally. I just got close to him because I admired his work so much. Bill got sick, pretty terminally sick about 3 years ago. He got cancer, and that's why his voice in the talk that he was giving on Mitch's video, his voice was kind of hoarse because he was trying to recover from that. I also got pretty ill about 3 years ago too, but my wife has been taking the best care of me, and she helped me come back into health. Bill didn't have anybody. He lived in that home alone, and it was just him trying to bring himself back. So I really talked to Bill a lot during those last few years of his life, trying to encourage him, trying to keep his art exciting for him. Mitch and I wanted to have some art shows. I wrote a big letter to the Museum of Art in Laguna Beach and saying, we have to do a show with Bill Ogden. He's a famous Laguna guy. We can't miss this point. Well, let's do a show before he's not here anymore, And we're gonna do a big beer fest with Ogden. And so when Bill came down to give me a painting, actually, that I asked him to do, he finished it, but boy, if you know Bill, he always never finished anything. He worked and reworked it, and you had to say, Bill, you're done, come on, it's finished, it's perfect. No, I still have to add, you know. He was so complete as an artist, but yeah. Anyway, we had a dear time together, and his art is really where Bill lives. He was an artist. That's his mission in life. That was his gift to Laguna Beach. His gift to all of us is his work. His spirit will always remain in his paintings, and we will always love Bill Ogden because of that. That's what I wanted to say too. They're doing something at the Laguna Heritage Society. It's kind of a 4-day hippie event. They're also going to be talking about Ogden, but the Brotherhood of Eternal Love is going to be, some of the guys are going to be there too. Mr. Conkey.
When is it?
Oh, it's Thursday night. It's at Stu News. It's in Stu newspaper if you look at Stu News. But it's a 4-day thing called The Gathering, and they're going to be showing the movie Orange Sunshine, and they're going to have a dance. It's kind of a hippie thing that's going on. But anyway, if you're interested to further see what Laguna was back in the 60s, that's kind of what we're going to be celebrating also with that too coming out. So I want to thank you for coming tonight. It's great to have you. Yeah, any questions you might have?
What was the subject of the final painting?
Beautiful. Bill did a painting, a wave painting that was, it's actually going to be at this place too. It's Laguna Cultural Society.
Laguna Culture and Arts. Laguna Cultural Arts on Forest Avenue upstairs.
It's the old BC space.
There's a store called Free People. It's a clothing store. It used to be Hurley. Now it's called Free People. You go upstairs from there. It used to be BC Space, the photo gallery. That's what Rick Conkey's doing that. So there'll be a lot of 60s artists in there. If you're interested, just come to it, and I'll have this in the back table. Any other questions you might have for Mitch?
Raise your hand, I'll bring you this mic so we can get it on the
Yeah.
camera. Can't pick up your playing voice when you get on the amplifier. Any other questions or comments?
Bill was talking about redoing, underpainting, redoing. He was a master of the unfinished painting. I commissioned, I would make a deal with him to give him half down and then the rest when it was finished. And he would keep bringing it back. He said, it's just about there, I just got a little bit more. I'd say, well, go ahead. I'll wait until you finish it, and then I'll pay you the rest. And this would go on 2 or 3 times, and finally, he put in that last line on that painting. It was in Peru. He was quite a traveler. This was in Machu Picchu, the beach, but he was a very particular person, and he dressed very particularly. He was always very neat, with the avant-garde kind of apparel that he wore. But he was the master of the unfinished painting, and
always had a great beard, and a great mustache, and I just try to keep up with mine in the Ogden style. The big old handlebar that guy had, it was, he was just a delightful man. People kind of struggled with him sometimes personally, but if anyone knows any great artists, they're always a very different kind of person. And that was our Bill Ogden. He was the gift to this town. He's going to be the most famous artist to come from Laguna Beach. This is my opinion, but it will be so as time goes on. So, thank you, and
Any other
hopefully.
questions? Can we get any other comments?
Yeah, sorry.
Anybody else? There were so many people nodding their head during this film. I'd love to hear from
I just wanted to know what made him difficult, his personality.
Yeah. What would you say, Mitch?
He was always paranoid that he was gonna get ripped off. He always had this sense that the man was trying to undercut him, and this person ripped him off, and this person ripped him off, and when you would talk to him, he would go on and on about all these people that have wronged him. And this person wronged me, and that person. And I'm thinking, I gotta track down these people and get the backstory. And the backstory is, he was the common denominator in all these relationships. And unfortunately, I didn't get close enough to him for him to turn on me. That's Mecca for me as soon as I reach that point. But I would say to him, I said, Bill, everyone's ripped you off. When did it start? And he's all, that's a good question. He's all, my second grade art teacher. I was like, what? He's all, I caught him stealing some of my drawings. And I'm like, damn, this guy's been wrong since he was, but he grew up really poor, so anything, but he had that gift economy, like, I'll stay here, and you paint, I'll paint this for you. But he worked with people. He worked with people that loved him, and the relationships got tarnished. And it's not just some relationship; it's every relationship. And it was like, and I go to these people, and they're like, "We loved Bill," and I said, "Well, what was it?" And some people would say undiagnosed schizophrenic, and then, well, if you're taking that much drugs, how can you really level, and they're, to be like, oh, a crazy person, oh, he was a crazy person. Well, we take mental health a lot more serious now, but the thing about the highs and lows of a person dealing with that is Bill wouldn't paint when he was loved. He would paint when he was high. And the paintings reflect that. They don't reflect negativity. They reflect this positive, radiates positive, the beautiful woman, the frogs, the water here. He talked about, he was a young kid and he drew a frog, he went fishing with his dad a lot. And he was just immersed in nature. And he said one day he could see this frog. And he could see half of it underwater and half of it. And he just locked that into his head. There were no cameras. And he went home and he drew that. And a lot of the attraction to his art is the way the light is reflecting off the water and it's rippling. And you look at it, how does he do it? How does he do it?
Yeah, and his skies where he could blend oil painting and create the most translucent skies. They were incredible. But it was that Flemish style that he let the warmth come through all the other paint that he put in on the canvas. And it was a very timely, mysterious approach to painting that very few people are doing it anymore, but Bill was a master at it. He trained himself looking at Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Da Vinci, these guys, and just became a master at what he was. And, you know, we revere him because of his work, and that's really where he lives. And Bill does live on, he does. He lives in his work, he lives in the spirit of his work, and he talks to me quite often, so I'm blessed with it. Yes?
Yeah, it was the late 70s or early 80s. I did a road trip up to Idlewild, and he was in the process of painting. It was either called Merlin or the Wizard. And it was phenomenal. I mean, it was one of those things that just changed my life. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, I was wondering if anyone has a copy of that, or?
Well, you saw when Mitch actually had a painting of it,
That was like
a picture of it.
I mean, it was phenomenal.
It is phenomenal, Merlin. But again, anything Bill did was phenomenal. You know, the ship painting, the desert paintings, the ocean painting, everything.
I think that one took about 10 years to finish.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, one of those never done Ogden things.
We had one here that was about 10 feet long and about 4 feet high. All of the ground was done. And we left it at our house for about 10 years. No, realistically about 6 years until he finally came and took it. But
Is that the Santa Barbara piece?
I don't know. I never saw it finished. I only saw the ground and then he came and took it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it was huge. It was 10 feet long and 4 feet high. Elves, gnomes, a little city in the background.
Really?
Yeah, it
Wow.
was huge. And he came and he said someone had finally was going to pay to finish it and he took it back.
Oh.
But that's the thing about it, doing the ground and then not finishing.
Yeah, no, if you didn't know, you'd see the brown and be like, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And a lot of that stuff in the 70s, browns were so popular, you know. Any more questions?
Right here, we got a mic right here.
Okay.
Oh, hi. I'm Brittany Queen. I'm his daughter.
Brittany.
And I just wanted to say, his battle with cancer, he actually won, so, first. And he thrived on it. He was really proud, because his doctor's like, it just disappeared, it just disappeared. So he was well for a very long time, and not many, I guess maybe you knew that his cancer had come back, because I certainly didn't know.
Well, he just died so suddenly.
Yeah, it did come back. We do know that now. But he had battled it long, and he was very happy with
Yeah.
that.
We were definitely trying to bring him back at every point we could. Living alone and recovering is a hard road to do, so
Yeah,
we were
he
working on
did
it.
that. And also, I think many people thought he was very difficult because he had a very low threshold for bullshit. It wasn't just on the drugs he'd done in the 70s, that's for sure. So he was a very real person,
Yeah.
and he could see people who were real, and he just wanted to deal with that. And he had gotten ripped off a lot throughout his life.
Yeah.
And I do know that for a fact. So yeah, he didn't trust everyone.
Brittany, what a joy it is to have you here. Bill Ogden's daughter, amazing. It's just a joy.
Yeah.
Are you on the phone? Let me know it.
We should mention that he painted a lot with Michael Ogden. There's a sort of a triumvirate of great artists from that time. That was Pat Tobin, Michael Ogden, and Bill Ogden, and Michael Hallahan to some extent. in that group. But I remember driving out to Sycamore Canyon, out in the canyon, in my truck with my kids in the back, and the two of them were out there painting together in Sycamore Canyon. And we'd take a picnic lunch and just watch them. You know? So he did a lot of work with maybe other artists also, but I know he painted with Logan quite a bit.
There's one more over here.
First of all, I'd like to say that artists are like children. They love to share their things, and they get taken advantage of in business oftentimes. And I was thinking that a lot of those paintings, maybe you only got the first 50% because you never finished the paintings.
So true. There's-
And another thing I'd like to mention, I'm not questioning his mental state or anything, but there's one particular artist I think everybody would enjoy if they were to look it up on Google Images or something. It was an English illustrator named Louis Wayne, and he did illustrations for children's books with cats, dressed up like human beings, right? And then he, later on in life, he became very mentally ill with schizophrenia, and the paintings he did in the mental institution were the beginnings of psychedelic art. And if you look at the cats from his period as a child's book illustrator, and then you see these radiating, outrageous cat, psychedelic Tibetan, acid-fueled through schizophrenia art, it's like wonderful. So I'd suggest it's Louis Wayne, W-A-I-N. But anybody that's interested in that, what I just said, look it up because it'll blow your mind.
There's a movie
That's cool.
recently about Louis Wayne. Oh,
That
yeah,
one right
yeah,
here.
great, yeah.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm the Golden Girl in the 1970 I first met Bill, I lived on Glenary Street, right behind Jean's Market, and a little house. And I first met Bill on the beach at Oak Street. And when I first went over to where he lived in a tool shed in the alley that ran behind my house. A literal tool shed, about as big as these four chairs together.
It's renting for $2,500.
And so the first time I ever took LSD was with Bill, and I took a very, very light dose because I was always super careful. And we were out with a group of people. We went out to the Ortega, and he talked for years and years. I just saw him a month before he passed away. I live in the Coachella Valley now, and we had a coffee and sweet rolls together at a Starbucks. And he went on and on about those drawings that he did of me on that street bed. Every time I ever saw him, for many years, he talked about those being the best, most fluid drawings that he had ever done of a female figure. I would love to see those again. He said he still had them, they were in a folder, and they were just precious to him. So that was cool. Yeah, it was really cool. And I watched the progression of that 1970 Caller in that little tiny tool shed. He had an easel, and I watched the development of this thing. It was just incredible to watch his process. And then to see that finished product and think, my God, that came out of this. He slept in this little sleeping bag thing, and then this little easel. And that's how I first met him and how he worked. And of course, later he had bigger houses and he was doing other work. I was also the model for the Palm Springs calendar that was up on the.
P.S. I Love You. That was commissioned by my mother. She worked in Palm Springs. She had a map and tourist guide that she sold advertising for, and she thought it would be a great idea to have a poster that the local businesses and the Chamber of Commerce would be able to sell. So she commissioned Bill. She loved Bill. My parents loved him. He used to come up and have dinner at our house all the time, and they just loved him. So my mom said, "Oh, Bill Ogden, you've got to do this for me." And so she commissioned him, well, unbeknownst to both of them, or maybe beknownst to my mother, but she just forgot because she was so entranced with Bill's work. He made me into, which I was, a nude hippie girl. Well, Palm Springs, those are seriously old golfer dudes. They did not like the hippie culture in Palm Springs at all, and it was a big flop. And so she ended up with stacks and stacks of these posters. At one point, I talked to Bill. What's that? Yeah, same. I have them all over my house. And so it never happened. It never went off the ground, and that was really unfortunate. Now today, it might, pardon me? That was 1984, and that was the same year as this picture that was also on the screen, which is a picture I took of Bill. That was 83. And this little picture is a picture I took of Bill. And that was at that year. That was outside his house in Laguna Canyon. He lived in what we call the witch's house. Remember the witch's house?
Can I ask, do you know who the woman in the Forest Market picture?
Forest Market picture? I don't know what the Forest Market picture is.
I designed the Forest Market. It was a woman that.
No, I'm not familiar with the picture.
Yeah. I was wondering if it might find.
I'm not familiar with it. But that was that poster that never really happened, and it was unfortunate. And then the last time that he did a picture of me was the sawdust poster. That was me. I didn't even know it. That was the last picture of me that he did. And when I met him at the sawdust that year, I don't know what year that was. It was a few years ago. Yeah. And he said, "Laura, that's you." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, that is you." Okay, Bill. I didn't pose for it, but that was me. So that was really cool. I was happy to see that. But I met him in 1969, so I've known him for 53 years. So I might have known him longer than anybody in this room. I think so. He was a wonderful person. I have to tell you, he was probably one of, if not, the favorite person I've ever known. He was an incredibly wonderful person.
Final comments here. Okay, somebody else?